On today's episode, we're chatting with Lindsay Cross Miller. She is the president of Lycon North America, and she also has an MBA at Ivy Business School. She is an absolute inspiration to women who are not only business owners, but are also business owners and mothers at the same time. Lindsay learns how to balance it all when it comes to balancing a baby on one hip and her business on the other. So let's dive into this episode.
I'm trying to think how long that was like 2000 and
I don't even know.
2018. I think it was 2018, to be honest. I think it was like,
yeah, it probably was.
Yeah, because I don't think I had actually started anything yet. I think I was just like running ideas by you.
Yeah.
Shop. Yeah. So that's crazy to think about. But your story, like how you went to school for business and how you're in Europe and all that, like your story is just really, really unique. And I want people to hear about it too.
Yeah, for sure. So basically I started, I actually did my undergrad at UBC in kinesiology because I loved sports and everything, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I did that degree and I worked for 2 years in a sport marketing event management company, which I also love doing. I think that experience really taught me some really key life skills in terms of organization and timelines and just projecting out different things that have to be done for a specific project. So after that, I decided I wanted to go back and get more business specific experience. So that's when I went and did my MBA at Western at Ivy. So I did the 1-year program there, and then I ended up working over in London, England for Thomson Reuters in finance, which again, also, I think every job you have, whether you like it or not, gives you some sort of experience. So that taught me a lot about just in general market terms and finances, and I really enjoyed working there. And while I was there, I went to a spa, which at the time was called a wax bar. So it was only waxing. There was no other services offered. And it was in Notting Hill, and it was super trendy, and all the Spice Girls were raving about going to this place. So I went there, and as I was sitting there in the waiting room, I remember thinking, what a brilliant business model. You had these women mostly coming in every like 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, the prices weren't cheap. Your overhead, obviously you have overhead, but your per service cost, I think, would have been quite low in terms of the turnover that was happening and the revenue being generated. So I sat there and I thought, wow, this is a really, really cool idea. And I didn't do anything about it. And I went for a wax, which turned out to be one of the best waxes in my life. And I continued working at Thomson Reuters. And I always, in my heart, knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what that meant and what I was going to do. So I came back to Canada and I was looking for a spa to go for a wax. And I thought, that place in England, they had a really great product line. I wonder if somewhere in Canada offers the same service with that product. And I started doing research and I realized that this product called Lycon is from Australia and was not available in Canada. So I thought, at first, okay, maybe I'll open actually the wax bar concept, which at that time had not hit the Canadian market. And that was still, it was like basically just spas offering waxing.
What year?
Sorry?
What year was that, Lindsay? Like what?
That was in 2009.
Okay. Yeah.
2009, 2010. And so I started doing some research into maybe I want to open a wax bar, and maybe I introduced this product from Australia through opening my own wax bar. And I was still at that time working for another company in Toronto, so I had a job. And I decided, I met actually someone in Canada who was just about to launch the very first wax bar, and we hit it off, and we kind of partnered in a way where we thought, okay, I'm going to import this product line, and you already have the business set up to do the wax bar. Why don't we work together and see how far we get? So essentially, I introduced Lycon into Canada through this girl that I worked with. She launched the first wax bar chain in Canada and is still doing quite well at it. And I think for me, a few things was, one, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So I got the distribution rights from Australia from the product, and I started literally shipping over these like pallets of wax. And I I didn't know anything. So I didn't know anything about how to contact a freight company, what customs meant. It was all brand new. And so I really just did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people. And through Ivy, I was able to attend a lot of entrepreneur groups and meet different people in the industry, well, in similar industries, I guess. And on top of that, I was actually 8 months pregnant. So I quit my job and I decided to do this full time. And my husband, he never questioned me, but he definitely wondered, okay, is this the right timing? But it didn't slow me down. And I ended up having our now 8-year-old daughter in November and launching the business in January. So I didn't really, it was a little bit crazy, but you know what? I wouldn't change it for the world. And my husband was great. He was working, but he picked up a lot of the slack and we did it together. And so I started, I guess it would have been about 7 years ago with just pellets. And over the years, it's grown where I was then able to get the US distribution rights for the product line as well and grow into all the spas there. So now we're bringing over 40-foot containers every 5 to 6 weeks, I'd say. So it's a business that's grown from literally one pallet of wax to we have a third-party warehouse in the US and a warehouse in Canada as well. So it's been, I mean, overall, I think it's been a lot of learning. And on top of that, I had 2 more children.
Just throw them in there.
So there was no mat leaves, but there was a lot of help from family. And it's true when they say it takes a village, it really did. And the kids have, I mean, you know, we were fortunate enough to have some help, but not a lot. And we just made it work. And I think when you're passionate about something and you really believe in it, it works. And the hard work doesn't feel like work. It becomes part of your life. And I think that that's really the biggest learning for me is that it's just become part of my life. So
and even for your kids, they wouldn't know any other way, right? This is like, I laughed so hard. You had a picture of Ty literally in a box of like all the
the packaging.
The packaging, and he's like in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this should be like a commercial ad. Like, it was the cutest thing. But speaking of like the freights and learning all of that, you helped me out so much. I remember when we were away on vacation, and I'm like, this freight company is like to me. Remember when I called? Like, I think I emailed you. I was like, Lindsay, I hate to do this, but is there any way I can store all these? I had 500 makeup bags.
Yeah, the makeup bags. I remember.
We're in Fiji, like we're on the other side of the world. I'm doing like time change and trying to get a hold of this freight company. I'm like freaking out because they were going to charge me because of the holiday.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like this huge amount of money. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And John's like, well, who do you know in Toronto that would have like a storage facility? And I'm like, oh, Lindsay, she's pretty close to the airport because they were held up at the airport too. So it was just like a mess. And then I had to learn all about like how to do the brokerage for the freights. And you helped me out with all of that too. Like it was just mind blowing because I think when you're new to an industry and like, you're just you're in survival mode. You're just like, just going through the motions of learning and trying to connect to people too.
Absolutely. I always laugh because my dad, who's an entrepreneur as well, he always said to me, he definitely provided guidance throughout it all, but one of the big things he always said to me was, just get the PO, Linz, just get the PO. And I was like, one day I'll write a book called Get the PO. Yeah. And it's true, right? Like you get that purchase order and then you figure everything else out to get the product to the customer. And I think that's something that always has stuck with me, especially if I look at entering into new markets with new products. I always think, okay, you know, you really do want to get that purchase order to minimize your risk and to know sort of projecting out what your sales will be immediately versus carrying a bunch of stock, which is essentially cash, until you get the purchase order. And that's something that I really try to think about in a lot of things. And that's helped a lot for me. I think in the beginning it couldn't have been more true because I got these big purchase orders and now I was like, okay, now what do I do?
I think one of the biggest things, which now that I'm into it's funny because I love your story, how you literally had the business degree, you had all the numbers. You and I are so opposite in the sense of like, where you had the numbers, you knew how to like mentally run a business. And I found with me, I had the knowledge of the spa industry and like how like lash extensions, but even the waxing, like I know sometimes, well, you had sent me samples to try and stuff. And it's like so neat to see how someone from a business background is running a wax company where you have no aesthetics.
Yeah, no aesthetics experience. And I've learned a lot over the years, and I've done some waxing courses with the founder. Actually, I went to Australia I guess about 6 years ago. And I spent 10 days there doing a full wax training course with her. But absolutely, like I didn't know the industry. I didn't know, how to do a wax. But I think for me, it was learning. And I think also I'm not necessarily passionate about waxing, but I was passionate about the business and the marketing. And I loved, this was a unique product that at the time there wasn't a ton of competitors in the space. And even now, I mean, you go to a trade show and there's thousands of skincare lines, and waxing, there's really only a handful of companies doing it. So it was kind of this niche market that I made sense. And going off that too, speaking of women in business, the founder, I really look up to. She's an amazing woman. She's built this incredible business literally from her stovetop. And it is just grown and flourished, and she's still in the office every day. She'd be traveling to all her countries if she could, except for obviously things have changed. Yeah. But she comes, like, she meets me at trade shows, and she is doing the grunt work. She's, packing boxes, and she doesn't need to do that. But I think that's what makes an entrepreneur, is getting your hands in there and understanding, especially for you running a spa, understanding what your customers are looking for, and then translating that into business opportunities. So I think it's really important. And she's just an incredible person that I look up to, and that's really important in your business, to have a role model.
Oh, 100%. Like I remember you and I going for that coffee. I remember like I just remember John's parents connecting me with you. I had met with parents. I had gone for dinner with your parents. They're like, you need to meet our daughter. Like, it's just so funny how everything just worked. And then I remember meeting you for coffee, and I was like, wow, just like sitting with you for that. I think we were there for over an hour, just really talking about like, okay, the struggles and all the insecurities I had of starting this business, this is real. This is normal to feel that way. For sure. And even like still digging in the trenches. Like we just ended up inquiring about our first ever franchise. We're getting into some franchises now. I can't release any names yet in public, but we're getting into our first franchise. So like when you're talking about those POs, like it's so true, because now like we were just like selling to independent people for spas, but now having these franchise opportunities, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're a legit business now. Like it's like a whole different idea of how business and the number and quantity, but having, I think, someone to look up to, whether it's in the same industry or not, or even business and knowledge that way. But I find it with what really hit me the most, I think, when I was chatting with you at that coffee shop, was how you were saying like you were able to raise your family as well as growing a business at the same time, like literally a newborn business and a newborn baby at the same time. So one of the things that you would say to people who are in this kind of the same boat?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I reflect a lot on that, because there's a lot of pressure, obviously, as a mom. I think naturally you do take on a lot more stuff in the home and with the kids, and a lot of the time the kids do want mom. But that said, I think for me there was just no option. Like I just knew that I had a dream, and I just knew I wanted to follow that dream. And I think having a supportive family, in terms of like my husband being very supportive, and even my parents and everyone, having that network of support really helps. But I also think it's, for me, leading by example. So that's the biggest thing for me, especially with my girls, is teaching them that mommy can work too, and that mommy loves what she does, and not just work is work. I love to teach them that it's something I'm passionate about. So it's not work. It's more, it's what I love doing, and it makes me a better mom. It makes me a better person. And I think that's where I get upset, is sometimes I hear people who have these dreams, specifically women, and then they're like, oh no, I can't go for it because I'm probably going to get pregnant in the next year. And again, there's the book lean in, where it's never take yourself from the boardroom table until you're actually left the boardroom table. And I think that that's the whole thing is don't back down. There's no reason why you can't do it. And I would never say it's been easy. Like I there's times where, you know, you're up late working and you're doing it while the kids are napping, or while you're like literally bouncing a baby in a baby carrier, answering emails. But in the end, I think it made me a better mom and a better person. And I hope that my kids will see that. I hope that they'll see the hard work and dedication that it takes, and that you know, and I bring them to the office and they pack orders. Like they were here last week, literally packing orders and putting labels on them. And they were like so proud of it and they loved it. And so I think that that's fun for them as well. But yeah, it's definitely not something that I would say was easy, but I think I wouldn't change it. Like I don't ever feel like I missed out. I was able to be there for them, you know, when they were little. Like I breastfed all of them. Like I was able to be there when I needed to, but I also balanced something else. So,
well,
and I
gave you
go ahead.
purpose, right? Like it gave you another type of purpose,
Right.
but also with your kids too. I think it instills that work ethic at that young age, to see like when you work hard, like you will build this passion, you will create something, like that whole creating something.
For sure.
Think that's a great thing to instill in your family as well as like your children. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's funny because they know what Lycon is, but I don't think they actually know what the product is. So I feel like if they go to school and their teachers are like, "What's Lycon?" I know that they don't. I don't know what they tell their teachers.
You should do like a little
So
like a little mini interview with them. Be like, okay, what do you think of the product?
yeah, it's pretty funny. But no, I think that the biggest thing is just following. But that said, there's lots of women who don't work and they're just as happy. So I think it's whatever's right for you. And I think that you have to follow your heart and know what's going to make you the best mom, and not feel guilty about it either way.
I know with like a lot of the women I've been speaking to, and even for the age I'm at, everyone's starting to get married and have kids, and that this
Right, yeah, for sure.
way of life, right? And even John and I have had conversations in the sense of how things are going to change when the time comes that we decide to have children. But like even for me, I think because I started my business when I was so young, so I was like, now I can start gaining the momentum of having assistance, having things in place.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't, like, I still want to go to trade shows. Like I love going to the ESI spa shows. We went to Vancouver like in 2020 before the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And Toronto twice now. Like I'm just like so in love with the behind the scenes, being involved. Like
For sure.
sometimes I'm realizing like, wow, the girls could literally run this without me half the time. And I'm like, this is kind of scary.
It's the sign of a good leader, right? Like that's what they say is, and that's something that I must admit, if there's something that I've struggled with my business, is finding the right people along the way. And you know, there's the quote, getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off. And I think I'm in a really good place where I've found the right people, and things really have kind of fallen into place, and it's made a huge difference. But for me, that would be one of my biggest challenges, is finding the right people. And it's really hard, but when you do, you have to hold on to them. And I think that probably would have made my life a little bit easier along the way had I had more of the right people. But you live, you learn. And I think over the years, I've now kind of been able to hone in more on what I like specifically need in terms of the business. But yeah, I think outsourcing and recognizing areas that are not your expertise and where people can add value who do have that expertise, I think is really important. And essentially you can't do it all. And having that extra help will get you further ahead than trying to do it all.
Some of the like best advice I've had, and other entrepreneurs, I'm sure you can vouch the same way, is like hire slow and fire fast. Like
for sure,
100%. Time, like really analyze that person and multiple people. Don't just settle on one. Really interview people. Take your time hiring. And then as soon as like, and I feel like women, we have this intuition when we know like something's not working, or you're just not working well with that person, or they're not, it's like a bad apple punch, right? And I think we need to give ourselves more credit when it comes to that too, of like, okay, no, we need to, it's like dropping your kids off at the babysitter. If you knew as your business being your child, right? It's like, okay, would I trust my business in this person's hand or my child? Yeah, no, probably not. So why am I trying to make this work if it's just not going to work? So how many people do you have specifically working at your location in Ontario?
So right now in Canada, just one. And then in the US, we have more like through the warehouse.
Yeah.
Obviously, we scaled back a lot with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the US hasn't really slowed down that much, to be honest, which is also terrifying. But they're not really closing things down there. So, but it's been good for my business. Canada has really shut down, obviously. But the US sales continue to be strong. And I think that's another aspect that I had to really learn about was the operations of running a business in Canada and the US. And I've learned over the years, through various means of opening an LLC in the US and then closing that down. And then, obviously there's a lot of taxes, like tax ins and outs. And again, that's something that's really important, is hiring the right experts for that. So I have a tax US specific accountant for that area, and just really making sure that you are aware of that, because there are a lot of differences in the countries, I guess. But if you can operate in the US, it just opens up a huge door for you.
Another point that you brought up when we were at that call, I think I like absorbed every sentence we talked about that day, because I just remember it so vividly, because I remember you saying that like the population of New York City alone compared to Canada, like you were just like, the way you like explained the market.
Yeah, it just makes
so much sense, right? So when you were talking about the scaling and growing of the business and like getting into those other markets, I was mind blown. I was like, I never even thought of that.
Yeah, the US is just such a big market, and the potential is so big there. It's also a lot more competitive, but I think if you do it smartly, there's a huge opportunity there for sure. And also, like, along with that came a lot of foreign exchange stuff, which I've now learned a lot about as well, in terms of, with Australia, I buy in Australian dollars, then I'm selling in US and Canadian, and just understanding that that's like a whole other aspect of the business. And, now I'm at the point where I can buy futures because I kind of know my buying pattern. So there's been a lot of other things that I've learned along the way that I would never have even thought about. But I think again, that comes to having the right people. And like my dad was the one who kind of opened my eyes up to that and has helped me with a lot of the foreign exchange stuff. So I think the biggest thing is just knowing that you don't have to know it all. And where you don't know it all, how do you find the right people who do?
Yeah. And I think too, where you find your niche, the one specific thing you're good at within your business, and then finding, like, not wasting your time of figuring out, like, even for me, these Zoom calls have been like, I've never had to be on virtual, right? I'm always in person with my clients or customers. So set up Zoom calls and stuff like that. My assistants normally set it up for me, but now I can't even physically see them. So it's a hard way to learn and do all these things. But I'm like, okay, for me to do these tech things, that's not my expertise. Mine's more the creative, the connection. So outsourcing that, because you think of how much time you're wasting in the sense of learning when you can hire someone who is an expert in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So with Australia, did you so you met with the founder as well? Was it like immediate that you had to do, like, how did you get involved with Lycon itself? Did you have to go to Australia to meet with the founder?
Sorry, my daughter just popped in. Online learning. So I actually didn't. They kind of took a chance on me as much as I took a chance on them, to be honest. I had a call with the business development manager at the time, and we kind of hit it off. But it was kind of funny when you think about it. Like, he was asking me about my experience, and I was quite honest, and I said, I don't have experience in this industry, but I do have other business experience, and I am quite passionate as an entrepreneur, and I do have people who can advise along the way. And they really just kind of took a chance on me. And then, so I ran the business in Canada for a year, and the founder came over in the February, and we did a big media splurge, like a big PR thing. And I hadn't told her that I had a baby. So she showed up, and I was like, oh, I just have to like dash out at lunchtime. I have a 2-month-old baby at home. And she's like, what? She's like, you never told me you were pregnant or had a baby. And I was like, oh yeah, that happened. And I was concerned. I was worried that had I told them straight up from the beginning that I was 8 months pregnant, they may not have taken me as seriously. And whether or not that's true, I did feel that it was something that they may have looked differently, like, oh, well, when she has the baby, is she going to go off? Not knowing me and knowing my drive, it could have been an easy assumption, right? So I actually tell her, and she was quite shocked when she showed up and saw my 2-month-old. But then she realized how passionate and dedicated I was because I had already grown the business quite a lot to that point. So I think that really solidified our relationship, and she knew, like, along the way, as I kind of had more babies, that I was still serious and I was still committed to the business. Yeah. And we've just developed our relationship over time where we see each other at trade shows. And I did go there to Australia for a training and saw the manufacturing process and everything, which was great from a product knowledge and industry knowledge too. So it was quite funny, actually.
Well, it's like a weird, I don't know. It's funny how, like, I think we put this perspective in our minds as well, to an extent of what like other people might think of looking from the outside in, or depending on the perspective that they see within the company or when starting. But I find with women in business who are also mothers, I find are so well at communicating with others. Like, they have such a great way of making sure everyone's feeling like safe and happy within the work environment. They're really trying to like dial in on like the family community feel within the business as well. And I think that's why women are really taking off in the business industry, because they're great leaders as well.
For sure. And I think the biggest thing too is like multitasking.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Like you can, I was literally like writing emails, bouncing a baby, answering phone calls. I even in the beginning when I first started, I would take Tristan and my eldest and put her in the stroller and drive her around to all these deliveries with wax like underneath her stroller. Yeah. And I would, in Toronto, I would drive to, and I would walk to all these spas with these fur and this wax like underneath her stroller. I didn't really have a choice, and so like in the beginning it was a lot, and I think that that's maybe where sometimes it's different to men, is that my husband would joke, like, literally when he looked after the baby, he looked after the baby. Yeah. And everyone's different, but for him that was like there was no chance of multitasking.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Well, even I'm noticing, like, working from home, I've been like, I got laundry on, I'm like trying to do like calls, or I'm on the phone, emails, and I'm like, okay, I wouldn't normally I'd be working at like the spa. I wouldn't be physically working at home. So I'm like, how did I run a household and do all this while working? I'm like, how did I do it? But I think it's like such a neat connection that even within the beauty industry as well, like I look at some of the other women I have on my list to do Zoom calls with, it's great because we're all interconnected one way or another. And like when I called you that day about getting the freights, like, oh gosh, I feel like I'm guys. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I was in like a frantic mode. I was just like, I have no idea what to do. So I just think with how you met with me for coffee that one day, like when we met at King City there for coffee, just your story, I was like, I have to have Lindsay on to talk about it, because it just resonated with me on so many different levels, with me like at the point of my life then and the point of life I'm in now. And I think a lot of people listening will be able to like see the whole story and see that they're able to do it as well, depending whatever stage they are in their life.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that a lot. And I think one of the other things too, just to kind of like top it off, I was on a seminar a couple of weeks ago, and it was through Ivy. It was like this mom group that was they were doing a seminar on like women in business, and the biggest thing that I took away was guilt. Like just taking away the guilt of, if you are working, then there's no guilt there. Like that's for you, and you're passionate about it, and getting help is okay. And maybe you aren't the mom that drives them to school every single day, but you are there to pick them up or whatever it is. It's just letting go of the guilt, and everybody does everything different. So you can only do your best.
100%. And I don't even have children yet, and I still feel like I have my friends that are stay-at-home moms, which like that's what they've always wanted. For me, I was the type of kid growing up, I had like you know how you had like you would have your baby, or I was the one always running a store. Like I was
Yeah, for sure.
from day one. But I find like even I don't even have children yet, and I always explain my businesses as my children, like as my babies.
Yeah.
I just like already I almost feel that guilt with like what you were saying about, I know I'm probably not gonna be able to drop them off at school every day or be able to be there for field trips and that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
it's also having that balance between being a mom,
for
being
sure.
a business owner, and you don't have to have it all put together. You don't have to have it all.
No.
I just applaud all business women who are moms as well, because you guys are amazing. Just making
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It pays off in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And also with the online learning, the way the world is now, too. You guys are teachers too now.
Yeah, that part's a lot.
Yeah. Well, awesome. This is really great to catch up, and I'll let you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.